Hey everyone, it's Bismarck from Military Aviation History, and before we get started on today's video, a quick little information update here. Together with Bernhard from Military History Visualized, I am currently self-publishing a book over at Indiegogo. You might already have seen the announcement video right here. It is a translated German Army regulation from 1941, focusing on the medium tank company. It explains essentially sort of the training regulations, the setup of a tank company, the tactics, the doctrine, all that good stuff. And for example, in our past visit to the German military archives, we've also researched the subject a little bit there and added additional information into the book. Now, we're quite overwhelmed and really surprised by the positive reception of this book. We've sold like more than 250 copies by now. Campaign is still sort of starting out, really. So thanks very much for everybody who already picked up a copy. And if this is something that interests you, check it out via the link down below in the description. Talking about Bernhard, actually, today's video comes courtesy from him. You might already have seen some of the videos on his channel where he talks with German military historian Dr. Töppel, who is an expert on the Eastern Front and specifically also noted for his work on the Battle of Kursk. Now, they have a whole interview series on Bernhard's channel, but he gave me this video because, well, the question sort of came from me, and it's a little bit of an outlier because it talks about, of course, the air war over Kursk, the Battle of Kursk and how things were shifting there. Now, it is an outlier, as I said. It is not really the primary focus of the whole sort of questionnaire that he had and brought forth to Dr. Töppel, but I thought it would be interesting to feature here. Without further ado, here we go with the video. Hope you enjoy it, and remember to check out the link down below for our German Army regulation. As always, have a great day, good hunting, and see you in the sky.
Hello everyone. As you can see, I'm not Bismarck, I'm doing a special for him, and I'm here with the leading German expert on the Battle of Kursk, Dr. Töppel. And some basic question, which will have likely a complicated answer: who won the air battle above Kursk? Because it was, as you mentioned in your book, one of the largest air battles during the Second World War, which often does not get mentioned at all.
It's a tricky question because you had to define what is the air battle. Because the Germans, they won during the first days. The Red Army forces suffered, the Soviet air forces suffered enormous losses, and they had to bring units from other sectors of the front in to fill the gaps. And that was quite catastrophic during the first days. But then the Germans had to pull out Air Force units to other front sectors. The Red Army brought in new Air Force units from other sectors, and they started their counteroffensives. And every front, every army group, the Soviets called their army groups fronts. You know this already, of course, you are specialists. They had their own air armies. And so they had an overwhelming superiority, and so there was no German air superiority after the first week. But during the first days, there was a German victory because the Red Army air forces suffered these horrific losses. Yeah, and at first day, you can read the numbers in my book. According to the official numbers, the Soviet air forces lost 300 airplanes on the 5th of July alone, and the Germans lost, if you take all the causes, even accidents and one case of sabotage, then you come or badly damaged aircraft. Obviously they were not repaired. Then you can say they lost at at most 40 aircraft. And for the Soviets, is more likely at least 300 aircraft. Yeah, and so you see in this relation is during the first days, but then the Germans pull out, and of course they have casualties as well, especially through the anti-aircraft. They suffer more casualties from losses from anti-aircraft fire than through Soviet fighters. But then they have to pull out units, and the Soviets gain more and more strength because they can have more reserves. Yeah,
I mean, the numbers are quite quite high for the initial wins for the Luftwaffe.
Yeah.
So what was their surprise? Because I mean, surprise is unlikely because the Soviets knew that they were coming. So
yeah.
So was a new fighter introduced or what?
It's a combination of factors. The Soviets had problems with the command level. They still suffered from the purges and from the losses during the first war years. And they did not have enough experience. The tactics were in favor for the Germans. They attacked from above. The Soviets used to fly low-level attacks for their Il-2, Ilyushin, Sturmovik. They flew low-level attacks, and the aircraft escort, fighter escort, accompanied them in low level. And the Germans came from above, very easy shot, and then where they were off again. And there's a combination of facts. And the Soviet pilots were not well trained. So the Soviet aircraft were quite good in low level, but in the medium level dogfight and stuff, they were inferior to the Germans. So it's a combination of facts. But yeah, and actually, it sounds like, wow, he must exaggerate 340, but actually I cut the numbers down, because in other books you read on the first day of Operation Citadel, the Germans shot down 450 or 425 aircraft, and the Germans lost 6 or 7 or 10 aircraft. So I tried to give a real figure and take everything in perspective, even the badly damaged, and my figure is about 300 to 40 aircraft. So and basically, did the Soviets counter this to a certain degree, or was it just because the Luftwaffe had to pull out? No, they learned, of course, and they had to. They said, we can't cope with these losses, so they introduced, according to what they write, they introduced these escort cover at high altitude. So they couldn't be surprised by German aircraft. Their favorite altitude was 4,000 to 6,000 meters. Yeah, and so they had fighter escorts who escorted the lower flying planes in this altitude, so they couldn't be surprised by surprise attacks by German aircraft. And of course, they tried to, had to improve. Of course, if you want to survive, you have immediately learn and try to improve. Yeah. So and you mentioned most of the losses for the Germans were due anti-aircraft guns. Anti-aircraft,
This was mostly for the ground attack planes, I assume, or also for the fighters?
Stuka and fighters too, fighters as well. I asked one German Luftwaffe veteran, Viktor Petermann. Some of you may know him. He was a one-legged German fighter ace, World War Knight's Cross holder. And I asked him about, do you remember something about the Battle of Kursk? You were there, and he said, I only remember that we had to fly a ground attack, and we suffered from the flak. So we did not suffer from the Soviet aircraft so much, but with our Messerschmitt, who were not really made for this purpose, we had to fly low-level strafing attacks, and we suffered from anti-aircraft fire. That's what I remember. But of course, most of the time it hit the Stuka and the bombers, but they had more. The anti-aircraft was more effective than the Soviet fighters. So basically, a lot of anti-aircraft guns due to the preparation of the defense and everything. Yeah, so, and the Soviets fired. This is very well known. They fired with everything. If they saw a plane, every soldier, every individual soldier fired with a rifle, and most of the time they hit something. Yeah, and this was quite feared, the anti-aircraft fire. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So so overall, in the end, the Soviet Air Force assumed air superiority or even supremacy, or?
Yeah, in the end, from the second week on, I would say, already from day 5, 6 or the second week, they had air superiority. And the Germans said, we have quite high casualties or losses, because the Soviets are always there with their Sturmoviks and bombers, and yeah.
Okay. So, in general, what books would you recommend on? I think you wrote a review on one book about the air battle above Kursk. Is there any book you can recommend for people interested in it? I didn't read the review, so I don't know if it was positive or negative. I know you're quite critical.
Yeah, I am.
Because we have a major problem usually, Bismarck and I, if we look for proper books.
You can read something in my book. But there are some books by Russian authors, Khazanov and what's the other? Khazanov, Gorbach. And the Gorbach book is quite good, but it's not translated. Okay? It's only in Russian. It's only in Russian. That's the problem. And Bergström has written a book, the Kursk, the air battle. It's not bad, but it has some flaws. Yeah, it has some flaws, but it's not a bad book. If you want to know more about the air battle of Kursk, you can go for the Bergström book, but it's not a definitive book. The definitive book about the Kursk air battle is yet to be written. Yeah,
I suspect it's something like this. This is like finding any books on this topic on the Eastern Front Air War is quite problematic.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for watching this.
And see you next time. Bye.
Bye.